Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and I hope all of you are having a wonderful, wonderful day. And we're just going to go ahead and get started with the show. Today on the program, in the second part, we will be doing computer and technology news, which will have a bunch of fun stories and just everything that you need to hear about in the world of technology. It's our way of keeping in touch with what's new and what's different. And then, of course, in the first segment, kind of a different way to stay in touch and stay up to date. We have a guest, and today's guest is none other than highspeedinternet.com. You may have checked out their website before when you're looking for service providers in your area. I know that whenever maybe you move places, or even, and this is actually a big one, if you haven't moved places, then you want to check out who has the best internet availability in your area, and that could be a very difficult task because just kind of aggregating all that information. Well, that is where our guest comes in. So we're going to get to them in just a moment, but before we do, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything for today's show, be that a link to our guest website or anything and everything we talk about on the program today. You can find it in the show notes right there on the homepage, right there. Very, very simple. Also, be sure to check out the social media contest brought to you by Logitech, as well as the live video stream, which you can also find over at twitch.tv/computeramerica. Now, all that being said, let's just go ahead, jump right into this. Our guest is waiting in the wings very, very patiently. And everyone, let me introduce Ms. Victoria Merinda, and she is the community manager for highspeedinternet.com. And yeah, she's going to be talking all about, just kind of how they do what they do and how they can help you in, this very important decision. So, Victoria, thank you for joining us here on Computer America.
Thank you, Ben. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I am happy that you could join us. And of course, why don't we go ahead, get some background on highspeedinternet.com. When was it started? And then a bit of background on yourself. How did you find yourself working with the company?
Yeah, so like you said, High Speed Internet, or sometimes we call it just HSI, highspeedinternet.com helps consumers make decisions about their internet and their service providers. So like you said, they can come to the website, put in their zip code, and find out kind of what internet is available for them. And also we have a range of kind of information that helps you break down how much internet do you need. We want to make sure you're not paying too much for the internet plan that's not right for you. So we're all about helping you find the right internet plan. And my background, I started as a community manager with HSI just about 6 months ago, earlier this year. Mm-hmm. And we're based in Utah right now. And I'm kind of in charge of helping put together these reports every month or so, which is similar to the report that that we're here to talk about today about 5G internet. But that's basically what I do, is help put together these reports that are a little bit more fun, but also kind of help consumers, just some kind of different content we can put on our blog.
Right, yeah, and of course that's how we kind of got in touch with you. We saw your report on how 5G is going to affect consumers out there, and why don't we go ahead and just talk about, or just jump right into 5G. So give us some background. I think a lot of people out there by now should be familiar with, started with 3G, 4G, LTE, LTE plus. Like there's a lot of little acronyms. If you could just give us a quick rundown on 5G and where it fits into, the services that people already may know about.
So I think, there's been so much kind of talk in the news about 5G. It's expected to roll out in the U.S. even as soon as December of this year or maybe January of next year. And I also know a few providers have already rolled out some 5G in some major cities just to kind of test how that's going. So there's been kind of a lot of talk about 5G. It's expected to be super fast. It's meant to be a lot faster than any of the other internet we've seen before. And obviously, but if it makes sense, it's kind of the biggest jump in internet speeds that we've ever seen. The jump from the 3G network to 4G, this is going to be a lot bigger than that. Mm-hmm. And so, it's kind of interesting because, Apple and Samsung, no one's really released a smartphone that's going to be 5G compatible yet. So that's really interesting to know that they're planning to kind of roll it out. Nobody really knows exactly when it's going to be rolled out. And then once it is, it's like, how does the everyday person even get 5G in their pocket? So right. It's really interesting to kind of look at. We don't really know a whole lot about this internet. We don't really know what to expect. We don't know what's going to come of it. We don't know how providers are going to give that internet to the everyday consumer. And so it's just really interesting to kind of follow this hype that's being built up and kind of this mystery around it to figure out what that means for everybody. And is it really going to be as life-changing as it's being predicted?
Right. Well, let's go ahead and try to at least talk about some of those questions. And I think a good place to start would be obviously the 5G is going to be kind of a cell phone protocol. It's going to be for wireless data transfer. Talk about, and I guess we should maybe first talk about some of the downsides and where it's not going to replace everything all at once, because there are some differences between 5G and 4G LTE. And the first one, I'm just going to name one off the top of my head. You can talk about any others you may know, but it's a matter of distance. You have to be pretty darn close to a 5G cell tower to get a good 5G connection. Are there any downsides, or is it blazingly fast internet and data? That's great. That's great. That's amazing. But are there any downsides that are going to kind of hamper the rollout of 5G technology?
I'm not totally sure. I would say my best guess, like you said, is internet accessibility. I think that there's a big issue of high-speed internet access across the country, and as I'm sure you know, a lot of rural areas still can't even get on the 4G network. So I think that there's a lot of catching up that has to be done. I'm originally from Australia, and I know in Australia we still are on 3G. So there's a lot of countries that aren't as caught up with this internet race, and I think that that's going to be an issue when they roll out 5G. Like I said, how are we going to get that to everybody? Apart from that, I think, with all this mystery around it, we just don't know how the technology is going to be able to cater to that. So I think that could be a potential downside, is everybody going to have to upgrade their smartphones to be able to access this internet. That's another accessibility issue if you can't always, afford $1,000 for the latest iPhone or $1,500 for the newest MacBook computer or something like that. So I think that's also another downside, is we don't know if we're going to have to upgrade all our computers and phones to be able to access this super fast internet.
Well, and that's and of course phones and other mobile connected devices, that's going to be a big thing. But have you heard any talk? And this is something I'm kind of excited about, because having a having a home internet connection, it's great and all, but sometimes it does go down. There are connectivity issues. If I could have some kind of redundancy where I could have a router that could utilize a strong 5G signal. Have you heard any talk about maybe 5G actually being kind of a disruptor or a displacement to home connected routers? Because I would imagine just the amount of data. I think it was is it 100 gigs or 1,000 gigs up and down? Being able to do that would replace, I think, a lot of people's home routers if they could have a router that connected to a 5G network.
Yeah, I'm not too sure on the specifics of that. I think that comes back to kind of just the mystery that's kind of surrounding this internet that's being really hyped up. But yeah, I'm not too sure, but it would be really interesting to look into that in the future to see what that would mean for that.
Yeah, and that's something that that I'm kind of hoping is that running landlines has, or just kind of laying down fiber optics and things like that is very arduous. It's a lot of money, and if you could just connect your home router over the air, I think a lot of people would be very, very comfortable, kind of switching to that. So talk about this report that you wrote, for everyone out there listening to the radio. We're pulling it up on the video portion, but talk about what information was kind of outlined in the report that you put out.
Yeah, so we recently put out a report. Hopefully you can do a hyperlink to the report on your website so that
sure.
people can easily find that. Yeah, so we really wanted to know. There's all this hype around 5G. Everybody's talking about it. News stations are talking about it. The tech community is talking about it. But what is it? And what does it mean for, like I said, for the everyday person? What does it mean for me personally when I use my phone, when I want to stream Netflix, when I want to FaceTime with family? What does that mean? So we basically got our data team to kind of look at current 4G download speeds and also what the predicted, 5G download speeds are. Or not even predicted, like we know what the speed is going to be, but kind of to just find the average speeds of using social media, downloading movies, downloading games, and downloading music, and how much time are we going to save when we do all of that when we calculate it with 5G internet speeds. So for example, something we found would be that social media, on average, for the average user, you'll save about 2.5 minutes every day in loading, which may not sound like a whole lot, but when we calculate that kind of as a fun, quirky kind of statistic, when you calculate that over a lifetime, that's going to be 4 days of your life. Another example. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and you're right. I mean, these little improvements. I mean, even myself, where I maybe have to wait for a page to load or something to upload or something to download, productivity is just gonna be so much better because waiting 10 minutes a day doesn't sound like a lot, but over the course of, like you said, a lifetime, it's even seconds make a difference. I can't imagine someone who's doing saving minutes or maybe even hours a day.
Yeah, and it's also about what does this mean? We keep hearing the future of social media and the internet is video, and maybe once 5G really kicks off, maybe there will be a lot more videos being shared on the internet because it's going to be a lot easier to download those or watch those really quickly. So maybe theoretically it could even save more time than just that 2 minutes a day because we're going to be consuming a lot more videos and watching a lot more videos. Another statistic was that with 5G, we've heard that you can download an entire HD movie in just 6 seconds, and that would take about 7 minutes at the moment. So that's kind of cool to know that if you watch maybe one movie a week, you're going to be saving 7 minutes a week. So this stuff really adds up when you combine it all together.
I can definitely see that, and you definitely did a lot of work putting together a very sleek looking and very easy to kind of read report that you have here, and I mean again, you have the pros and the cons here at the bottom. When it comes to 5G, you mentioned that it's going to start rolling out in select areas. Do we have a clear picture on which providers, because this is going to be through things like Verizon, T-Mobile, those kind of providers. Do we, or AT&T, whatever, do we have a clear picture on who's going to be developing this technology, or do you think that everyone's going to try to rush to be one of the first to bring this to market?
I think, I think I mentioned before, Verizon has rolled this out in 6 major cities. So they could very well be first, or, maybe they're just trying to do that to kind of look like they're being first.
Yep.
I think Verizon is a pretty good bet to be one of the first providers to roll out 5G. And I think, it might just be one company does it, and then before you know it, they all do it. Or maybe they're all just keeping really quiet about their progress on it. So I'm really not sure, but I think it'll be really exciting to see it could be even in the next few months that this could be rolled out.
Perfect. And I mean, this whole report here. Honestly, this is maybe 2, 3, 4 minute read, depending on your reading speed, but very, very much worth your time. But for you personally, what was kind of something that stood out to you? What was one of the more intriguing parts of this 5G study?
Yeah, so my favorite part of this whole report, the point of it was to just really kind of show a fun way to show consumers what they might be able to expect. And my favorite point that we found was that you could save about 23 hours a month, the average user, in internet download waiting time, so gaming, music, social media, movies. I think that's really cool that in the course of a month, you will save almost a whole day in waiting just for things to load. I think that, because our internet right now is the fastest we've ever known, we think it's really fast. Mm-hmm. It's going to be just really cool to see. I think 5G is going to be like almost instant downloads of everything, and just to see what that means for technology and to see what that'll do for the streaming services. Are people going to go back to kind of the downloading of movies rather than streaming it because that might be faster? So I think it's just, I really hope it's going to be as much of a game changer for the technology community as it's being expected to. I think it's going to be really, really cool to see if that could really save me a whole day in waiting for things to download every month. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and of course here on the show we often talk to a lot of companies, and this is going to be interesting for a number of reasons. I think you're right. For the consumer, this is mainly just going to be a net gain. There's not a lot of downsides to it, but for the companies behind the scenes, when you are charged by the amount of data that you push through different networks. Mm-hmm. What happens when every customer you have has the capability to pull down, almost a terabyte of data per second, or I'm sorry, I think it's like 100 gigs per second. And I mean, what happens when the amount of data that is being requested from you far exceeds anything that you predicted even 3-4 years ago, just because people now have the option. It's do you think that there's going to be any kind of growing pains for, not so much on the consumer, because the growing pain for the consumer, like you said, was going to be getting pieces of technology that actually connect to the 5G network. That's the consumer downside. What do you think is going to happen to the companies that, the Amazons, the Netflixes, everyone who has to service data? Do you think they're ready for this? Because this is going to happen quickly.
Yeah, I think like you said, I think there is going to be some growing pains. Hopefully they could kind of predict or kind of foresee these kinds of issues, but I hope that they can figure out, what that means, and what happens if everybody's like doing it at the same time. Does that mean it's going to slow down for other people? Kind of stuff like that. So It'll be pretty interesting to see. I think. I think that will be really interesting.
Yeah. I'm a little concerned because I think a lot of cell phone data plans, they're still pushing people away from unlimited, and I'm hoping that Verizon, AT&T, other cell phone providers, hopefully we finally do see that magical unlimited contract, because if you are running let's say a 50 gigabyte kind of cap on your data, you could probably eat through that in just a matter of minutes or even an hour or two. So I'm hoping, if nothing else, the data that we're allowed to consume on our devices goes up as well, just because we have this new threshold.
Yeah.
So, yep, there's that. And by the way, I mean, we picked up on this. Like you said, we're going to put a link to this in the show notes. But we picked up this, this report here. Have you seen anyone else kind of cover it, or anyone else pick this up? Because, again, you did spend a lot of work on it, and it looks very, very nice.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're really proud of this report. I think it came out really awesome. I hope everyone who's listening can get to see it because it looks really great. I know PC Mag did feature the report on their United States, UK, India, and Asia websites. So, yeah, we're still kind of putting the report out there, but we'd love for anybody to share it. And I think, yeah, I think it's a really great interpretation of what 5G could mean for everybody. So would love for everybody to check that out.
There you go. Yeah, and like I said, we'll definitely put a link to this. So before and before we kind of let you go and and say goodbye, I did want because we are going to be sending people to to high speed internet. I'm sorry, we are going to be sending people to highspeedinternet.com, HSI, and just talk about just the service at the website in general. That seems to be kind of your bread and butter. When people go to the homepage, what are they going to find, and how? And I see the zip code here. How would they best kind of use your website?
Yeah, so highspeedinternet.com, like I said, you can put in your zip code. You can compare the price of internet in your area. We also have a ton of tools and resources that can help you decide what's the best internet plan for you. We have a tool, how much speed do I need? You can put in how many people live in your house, what you do with your internet. Do you stream? Do you have a smart home? Things like that. And it will tell you based on your personal circumstances what the best internet plan for you is. So you can check that out. We also have some more fun tools and reports under the resources tab. Mm-hmm. You can kind of just sit and scroll through some of our other reports and kind of see if anything else there is really helpful for you and in choosing a provider. And, just kind of check out the website, have a look around. We keep it updated. We have a lot of information on upcoming internet technology like 5G and also what's the best for you right now. So, we're here to help you pick the best internet provider for you.
Very, very nice. And by the way, I do like your little map tool, and I'm finding some surprising stats that you have here. Montana, work on it. But yeah, Vermont has the worst broadband connectivity in the country, and then just a matter of a couple miles away, Rhode Island has the best internet connectivity in the country. It's you have some very cool information on your site.
Thank you.
Yeah. So like I said, we're gonna put a link to that and as well as the report. But I think we're gonna move on to computer technology news. So Victoria, I will let you have the last word. If people want to find out more, or if they where would be the best place to go if they want more information?
Yeah, so go to www.highspeedinternet.com/resources and you'll be able to find our 5G report there and many other cool tools and reports to help you pick your internet service provider.
Perfect. All right. And everyone, once again, in the show notes, computeramerica.com. Victoria, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. And again, thanks for the report.
All right. Thank you so much, Ben.
All right. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, everyone, and there she goes. And yeah, let's go ahead, switch on over to computer and technology news. But like I said, that was definitely a lot of fun, and you should definitely get your eyeballs on that. Now, why don't we go ahead and actually, before we go anywhere, no. You know what? Let's just hit it. Computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. Here we go. Everyone, let's go ahead and get things kicked off here. So something that happened kind of recently was one that we haven't really mentioned on the show too much. I'm sure that we are going to cover it a lot more with Marcel Gagnier. But I will say that, we'll just kind of throw it out there and then we'll cover it more in depth. But IBM, you may know them. I think they're actually supposed to be on the show here soon, but a completely different division. But IBM, the company who does a lot with government installations and kind of higher education and large orders of computers, IBM is still very much a part of that. And with that larger infrastructure, they utilize a lot of open source technology because, hey, one of those in particular is known as Red Hat. They are a favorite among, servers and just maintaining these large installations where IBM and Red Hat have been working hand in hand for a long time. I believe that they were not the exclusive provider of, kind of server management, but they were at least the recommended for IBM. Well, they tied the knot, made it official, and I think a couple tens of billions of dollars later, Red Hat is now owned by by IBM. And you may think, wow, that's so weird, because Red Hat, just like most other distributions out there, Red Hat itself is an open source company. They run a distribution of an open source Linux, or they run an open source Linux distribution but they also have a lot of technical expertise. So Red Hat as an organization provided a lot of, kind of troubleshooting, maintenance. They'd come in and install your stuff. It essentially gave you the peace of mind that you could call someone to service your Linux distribution. Well, IBM just purchased them. And because of the purchase, they didn't really they bought a lot of patents, but all the patents were destined to be open source. So, they could have used them anyways. They could have utilized them as much as they wanted to before the purchase. But what they really did buy was the talent. And IBM is hoping that to some measure, the talent will stick around and make their technology all the better. So, like I said, we're going to cover this a lot better with Marcel Gagnier, but Red Hat and IBM, I believe, are now the same company, where IBM acquired Red Hat. That was huge news, and we've seen a lot of the sky is falling, like we did when Microsoft purchased GitHub, and at the same time, we've seen a lot of, this could work out very, very well. So I'm looking forward to that conversation, but just wanted to make all of you aware of that. Now, let's go ahead and move on to some of our other stories here. Why don't we talk about, let's see, there's a lot of different stories here. Let's talk about graphene. That thing that never quite makes it out of a lab? Well, it just promised to be, yet again, another miracle material. And how, you may ask? Well, here we have it. This from Nature, which is the International Journal of Science, saying that, this one just published, actually it published a little while ago. Wow, all the way back in March. But hey, we can go ahead and cover just a little bit here, because I certainly didn't hear about this. Surprise graphene discovery could unlock secrets of superconductivity. Check that out. So that's, saying that physicists make misaligned sheets of carbon material conduct electricity without resistance. So superconductivity, I am not a scientist. I'm not someone who really understands this kind of thing, but I'm guessing what they're doing is you can transfer electricity through graphene, so that there is little resistance, no heat, no loss of energy, that kind of thing. And hopefully, this leads to a lot of different things. I mean, think about everything in our lives as far as technology is concerned that uses electricity. Everything from the wires in your wall to the batteries in your phone to computers to processors and everything like that. Graphene would have the capability to make all of those infinitely more efficient. That is what they mean by no resistance. So if you don't lose any kind of energy as you push the electricity through this, things charge a lot better. A lot of the power bill comes from the fact that you have this loss in heat. You have this loss in just resistance through a circuit. Hopefully, one day, maybe in the future, we can find out how to produce graphene, because if you don't recall, graphene is simply carbon atoms in a completely flat, two-dimensional sheet. And if you can figure out how to mass produce that and work with it, then you won't just be a trillionaire. You will be the savior of humanity if you can get graphene to finally make it out of the lab. So I found that pretty cool. Now let's see. Let's go ahead and see what else we have about here. How about we discuss a couple here. How about we talk about This one I found pretty interesting. I think we tried to cover it on another show, but it just didn't make the cut, unfortunately. But this one I found very interesting. So if you don't know this, music means that we're about to take a break. So when we come back, we're going to start talking about this article saying that researchers can now legally restore abandoned online game servers in their lab. This is pretty cool. We'll discuss why, and everyone, we'll be right back. More Computer America right after this. Everyone, stay tuned.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
Welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And yeah, we are in the first segment. If you missed any part of it, you can go back and listen to the podcast, which is simply today's show in its entirety, rebroadcast wherever podcasts are heard. Did I say cast enough? I think I did. Now, we are doing computer and technology news, and this article that we were just about to get into, I found very interesting because in the past, before technology, there have been at least some kind of record of what happened. You know, we talk a lot about like the oral tradition that is passed from generation to generation. That is, of course, very, very important, but something a little bit different. Now, I'm kind of talking in the neighborhood of like books and the written language, stone tablets, and all these kinds of things. We at least have some form of physical remnant of what happened. Now, the problem that we're running into now is that things just aren't printed that often. Things are not, it's very hard to consider building a platform and writing, let's say, a program in a book. It's just not going to happen. That makes no sense. So, a lot of old video games and a lot of old software, maybe the Linux community would call it, old abandonware or things like that, just no longer active development. And in some cases, the platforms at which they were designed to run on are no longer even used. If you needed a specific operating system to run something and that hasn't been, kind of updated in 25 years, odds are eventually someone's just going to drop it completely. And when it comes to online games, that can happen more often than you think. And the sad part is that these games had a big impact. They had a big impact on people's lives. But the Library of Congress is trying to make sure that they don't just fade away into obscurity, and the history of technology isn't lost. Because just writing, taking a screenshot, putting a page in a book does not do technology justice, where you could theoretically save a version of it, port it over into, some kind of other file format, and hey, you can recreate these things in the modern day. So that's why we have this article, Ars Technica. Researchers can now legally restore abandoned online game servers. That's right. This is a limited exemption, which requires original server code. Games must be played on premises. So essentially, this is a way to protect IP, but at the same time, making sure that just because someone has the patent for something doesn't mean that these games of yesterday languish in no one's hands. They just languish in kind of purgatory. So the article starts, among a wide range of new DMCA exemptions recently approved by the Librarian of Congress is a limited legal right for video game preservationists to restore online games that have been abandoned by their creators to a playable form. But the new rules come with a number of caveats that could require significant hoop jumping from affected research institutions. There you go. So some of those loops, and a lot of these loops, are to make sure that people don't, just essentially steal someone else's game and distribute it for themselves. That would open a whole big problem. So they said back in 2015, the Library of Congress granted libraries, archives, and museums the right to circumvent defunct DRM protections that require phoning home. And so with that being said, they said that, that require phoning home to authentication servers that are no longer maintained by the original game maker. That existing exemptions, which allow research institutions to use hacked console firmware to get around such DRM, has been extended. Has been extended as a part of the triennial review of such rules. So the DRM that everyone hates, the thing that protects companies and their IP to make sure that they aren't just stolen and distributed among certain groups. Instead, we are looking at libraries and research institutions are just hacking away, just making sure that they can play these games, even though that is exactly what they were not meant to do. But this is not for the sake of any kind of monetary gain. This is for the sake of, as they said, preservation. Let's see. So they said, but the 2015 exemption stopped short of letting research institutions relaunch versions of the centralized gameplay servers required to play many online-focused games, saying that the copyrighted audiovisual content that was originally stored in the service was still protected by the DMCA, and the Library of Congress argued 3 years ago. Yeah. So this is kind of a check on its own powers, but yeah, and what that means in layman's terms is think about any kind of World of Warcraft, Diablo, StarCraft, Call of Duty, Battlefield, things like that. If you're playing with anyone, that means that you are sending your data, your position, your character model, your inputs to a server, at which point the server is ingesting it, comparing it to other inputs from other users, and then sending back out that signal. And that signal, so, you pull the trigger, you fire your gun, you hit, you send it, your signal reaches the server compares it to the position that is being sent by the other player, and yeah, essentially all the computation is happening server side. And if you have that, then of course they argued at the Library of Congress that any such instance that you need to have that centralized server. Everything on that server that is still being maintained could not be recreated or hacked or anything like that, because it's just, it's not the game itself. It's not like Tetris where it's just on your computer, but it's actually being owned, maintained, and still, still the property of the person who owns that server. Now, the new ruling issued last week, they said they have expanded that exemption significantly, saying that research institutions can now launch their own version of video game servers used for administrative tasks beyond authentication, including command and control functions such as tracking player progress, facilitating communication between players, or storing high scores. That means that, yes, some of your favorite online games are not going to be gone forever. Hey, but they said that, let's see, the reason for this, such an exemption will, quote, enable future scholarships by enabling researchers to experience games as they were originally played and thereby better understanding the design or construction. And further, such activity is unlikely to harm the market for video games. Think about, I don't know, one of my favorite defunct video games is The Sims Online. I spent a lot of time playing The Sims Online, but EA took down the servers, and essentially they said everyone who purchased The Sims Online, your product is now defunct. We're shutting down the servers. We're not letting anyone else run them. And good luck. This game that we invested so much time, energy into is gone. Now, even though EA says that, maybe, hey, you can finally get to go back and play that on premise in these institutions. And again, the whole reason for this is to preserve gaming history and preserve the history of technology. Because, like I said, let's face it, not a lot of technology can be written in a book and enjoyed. It really does have to be experienced, and it's very easy to do that. So now here we are, and I really, really, really enjoy that the Library of Congress has expanded that. So there's a bunch of exemptions and things like that, but unless you work for one of these institutions, I think we can go ahead and skip on into the next article. Now, how about we talk about Google AI? You may be wondering, what the heck is that thing up to? What has it been up to? And what if I told you that the Google AI has been listening not just to an audiobook, but to pointless recordings of the sea floor? And it's not just listening to day to day, but rather 15 years of sea bottom recordings. That's right. And the reason for that is that they are looking for hidden whale songs. Whales, the gentle giants of the ocean that are seen almost crushing kayakers out on the West Coast. I guess identifying identifying their calls is not as easy as you think. And this seems like the perfect job for an artificial intelligence, because one person sitting down listening to something for 15 years is very, 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 very cumbersome and just not recommended. Now that's where AI has come in. Here we go, saying that they have years of undersea recordings, and they are feeding it into the AI-based investigation, hoping to create a machine learning model that can spot humpback whale calls. It's part of the company's new AI for Social Good program that's rather obviously positioned to counter the narrative that AI is mostly used for facial recognition and ad targeting, which for Google is a lot of AI is used for ad targeting and facial recognition. But I digress. Whales travel quite a bit as they search for better feeding grounds, warmer waters, and social gatherings, but naturally these movements can be rather difficult to track. Where fortunately, whales call to each other and sing individual and identifiable ways. And these songs can travel great distances underwater because of low frequency. So, With a worldwide network of listening devices planted on the ocean floor, you can track whale movements. If you want to listen to years of background noise and pick out the calls manually, that is, because really, I mean, if you put down, let's just say, I don't know how many underwater deep sea sensors you would need to cover the entire ocean, but let's just pretend it's 500 strategically placed, hundreds of miles apart sensors that can track all these whales. If all of them are continuously recording, then yeah, you're going to get more data than any group of individuals is going to be able to do. And to do a task that would otherwise be impossible, being able to identify one humpback whale from another, and then on top of that, being able to link two distinct whale calls to the same whale. That is something no human could possibly do, and it could really make an impact. They said that these AI and models are great at skimming through tons of noisy data for a particular pattern, which is why they're applied to all this data from radio telescopes and CCTV cameras. And in this case, the data was years of recording from dozens of hydrophones, there you go, stationed all over the Pacific. And this data has already largely been investigated, but Google's research wanted to see if AI agent can do the painstaking and time-consuming work of doing a first pass on it and making periods of interesting sounds with a species name. And in this case, like they said, a humpback whale. But it could just as easily be a different whale or something altogether. And they said that in hindsight, in retrospect, they said that the audio wasn't analyzed as such. Instead, the audio was turned into images and it could look for a pattern. And if you're watching the video portion, they have a nice little animated GIF here to show you, kind of what a whale call would look like. Because instead of teaching the AI to listen to something and, kind of hear if the whale sounded the same, I guess it was easier for the artificial intelligence to rather look at something, compare two images to one another, and determine this is the same image, or this is 99.9% similar to a previous image. Now, they said that the final effort divided the years of data into 75-second clips, and the model was able to determine with a 90% accuracy whether a clip contained a humpback unit or a relevant whale sound. And they said that it's not a small amount of error, of course, but if you trust the machine a bit, you stand to save quite a bit of time, or your lab assistant's time anyways. So 10%, that's a lot. As far as technology goes, 10% failure rate is definitely something that you have to take notice of. I remember back in the days when the first text-to-speech units were coming out, and having a 99% success rate sounds great and all, but if you're misspelling one out of every 100 words, and you're typing all day long, it's going to be a very, very sore point. And, but these things got better. They went from 95% accurate to 97% accurate to 99.9% accurate, to the point where the occasional mistake is completely justified by the ease of use of the product. So it seems to be about the same thing here. The AI is not perfect, but it can at least help save a lot of time. And in some cases, if you are, maybe if you're cutting your data down by 90%, then, well, actually, that's not what they're saying. But if you can cut the data down by any measurable amount, that's going to help researchers and help them do their job much, much faster. So I found that a pretty interesting article and a different way to use artificial intelligence altogether. All right, everyone, why don't we go ahead? It's getting late in the program. Why don't we go ahead and get a little saucy? Now, this is an article from TechCrunch. This is why when you do things at work, only do your job. Don't go to random sites. Don't go to weird sites. Don't fool around. If you have to, I'm not saying you should. And, in this particular case, I bet you even a government worker couldn't pull out their phone and surf on their phone. But here we have it, a civil servant who watched, there's no way to sugarcoat this. A civil servant who watched pornography at work blamed for infecting U.S. government network with malware. Yeah, not a lot of ways to turn that. And let's get into it. So, like I said, from TechCrunch, and saying that the U.S. government network was infected with malware thanks to one employee's extensive history. I put emphasis on that because it's in quotes, of watching pornography on his work computer. And that is something investigators have found. The audit carried out by the U.S. Department of the Interior Inspector General found that the U.S. Geological Survey network at the Eros Center, a satellite image facility in South Dakota, was infected after an unnamed employee visited thousands of pages that contained malware, which downloaded to his laptop to an unauthorized USB device and personal Android cell phone, which was connected to the employee's government-issued computer. So the USB device and the Android cell phone, which he was using for the downloading, were connected to a government-issued computer. And in some cases, they said that they found his Android cell phone was infected with malware. And like we said, the weakest link is just basic human error. And there you go. Yeah, this one employee caused a pretty decent attack vector. So with that being said, and I actually have an idea to bring this up with another guest, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. They're saying that it's bad enough in this day and age that a government watchdog has to remind civil servants not to goof off while at work, let alone on their work laptop. The Inspector General didn't say that the employee's fate was, but ripped into the Department of the Interior's policies for letting him get that far in the first place, saying that we have identified two vulnerabilities in the U.S. Geological Survey's network, IT security posture, website access, and open USB ports. Pretty basic. That's, I'm sure a lot of you out there, if you have a work machine, that's not uncommon to lock those things down. It's actually very, very basic. He said that there is a slightly bright side, saying that the Eros Center, which monitors and archives images of the planet's land surface, doesn't operate any classified networks. A spokesperson for the Interior's Inspector General told TechCrunch, ruling out any significant harm to national security. But the spokesperson wouldn't say what kind of malware used, only that, quote, the malware helps enable data exfiltration and is also associated with ransomware attacks. Probably just a Trojan, something that would give access to, to the operating system. So if they ever were to install any kind of keylogging program, or if they were to install any kind of monitoring software, or like they said, ransomware, it would help give them permission to do that without even asking. So run executables. Now, the report said that the agency should lock down its USB drive policy, restricting employees from using removable media on government devices, but it's not known if the recommendations have yet gone into place. And of course, the USGS has not returned TechCrunch's calls for comment. Everyone, no matter how good anti-malware, antivirus, anti-whatever, anti-intrusion hardware, software is ever going to be, basic hygiene, basic maintenance, basic intelligence when it comes to what I should be doing and what I should not be doing on my work computer, And that includes things like don't click email links or, from unverified sources or any number of different ideas. Yeah, it's education is going to be the best way to prevent these kinds of things from happening. But there's also going to be people who just really don't care. There you have it. So that one was different. I definitely found that interesting. How about, let's see, we have time for maybe one more article. Don't want to choose incorrectly. Let's discuss the new solar cell generates hydrogen and electricity at the same time. A double whammy. A rare sight indeed. Now, this coming to us from Engadget. There you have it. New solar cell generates hydrogen and electricity at the same time. It's a double duty win for renewable energy. They said that, in the ongoing pursuit of abundant renewable alternatives to fossil fuel, scientists have produced hydrogen for fuel cells through artificial photosynthesis, which splits water into hydrogen and oxygen, saying that the traditional process have struggled to use optical, electronic, and chemical properties in a way that makes this method efficient. But now researchers from the Berkeley lab have created a recipe that could completely bypass the limitations of current material. I like the sound of that. Where the team has created an artificial photosynthesis device called a hybrid photoelectrochemical and voltaic, or HPEV cell. So photovoltaic, I think, or is it photovoltaic is the old-fashioned, just solar panel, absorb sunlight, give energy. I'm sure it's much more complicated than that, but this one throws in the electrochemical as well. And they said that existing artificial photosynthesis devices can only make use of a small percentage of the sunlight that hits them. And as the lead author of the study, he says that it's like always running a car in first gear. This is energy that you could harvest, but because silicon isn't acting at its maximum power point, most of the excited electrons in the silicon have nowhere to go. So they lose their energy before they are utilized to do useful work. They said that the solution behind the new device is to simply let those electrons out. And the researchers added a second electrical contact to the back of the silicon component on the device, which splits the current produced by the sunlight energy, and allowing some of the current to split the water in hydrogen and oxygen, and some to be captured as electricity. Previously, and this is the cool part here, we're talking about efficiency. Efficiency is a big part of the game. Previously, artificial photosynthesis devices have an efficiency of 6.8%, but the new design has a combined efficiency of 20.2. So obviously each one of them are going to be probably a little bit less, not too much greater than 6.8, but together you bump that up and you multiply it by 3 times the amount of electricity that you're able to get out of the energy that you put in. Of the energy that is harvested, you can actually capture 3 times as much. There we go. That's better. Now the team has its basics down. It says it plans to continue improving the device as well as investigate real-world applications, where, of course, the design does beg the question, why not just store the extra energy in a battery instead of making hydrogen? Batteries are expensive, is one answer, but fuel cells aren't cheap either. And regardless, hydrogen is going to play a big role in the world's future energy mix, blah, blah, blah. Hydrogen fuel cells, if you are looking for the first true application of that kind of technology that you will see, check out the Olympics. The 2020 Olympics will be exactly what you're looking for. And there you will see buses run off of hydrogen fuel cells. It's going to be a great future. We just need to get there. Everyone, the music in the background means that we are just about done. Thank you so much for tuning into Computer America. I hope you had a lot of fun. Again, thank you to highspeedinternet.com. They were our guests today. If you missed any part of that, check out the podcast and take it from there. And until next time, have a great day. Thank you so much for tuning into Computer America. Check out our website, check out our social media. We still need to delete Google+. I apologize. We will get to that. But in the meantime, everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.